Eli had never imagined he would be working so far from Earth. The stars outside the viewport of the alien space station stretched endlessly, a ribbon of light that shimmered in shades he had no names for. He was small among the enormous corridors, his human frame seeming almost fragile against walls of silver metal and glowing panels. Still, he was here for a reason. He was the only human engineer assigned to repair and maintain alien vessels, a task both rare and dangerous, but one he had prepared for all his life. The station itself was a marvel. Its halls twisted like a spiral galaxy, and the central atrium glowed softly with floating light orbs that hummed a gentle melody. Alien officials moved gracefully along the walkways, their elegant forms and bright, unusual colors often drawing Eli's gaze. He had always been fascinated by alien life, but there was one figure he could not stop thinking about: Princess Lyra. Lyra was unlike anyone Eli had ever met. Her skin shimmered in a soft blue tone, her eyes gleaming like liquid gold. She walked with a quiet confidence that made everyone around her pause, not out of fear, but out of respect. The stories about her intelligence, courage, and sharp wit had spread even among the human crew, and Eli could not help feeling a mixture of awe and nervousness whenever he saw her. He had never spoken to her directly, and he doubted she even noticed him among the many beings on the station. That night, Eli was exhausted from the day's work. He had spent hours repairing a malfunctioning engine core on a massive alien freighter docked to the station. Every joint, every wire, every control panel had required careful attention, and his fingers ached from the effort. By the time he returned to the guest quarters assigned to him, he could barely keep his eyes open. The chamber was small, but comfortable, with a wide view of the stars beyond the station's glass walls. Eli sat on the edge of the bed, removed his boots, and let himself slump back onto the mattress. For a moment, he allowed himself to think of Princess Lyra. He imagined her walking through the station's corridors, the light catching her golden eyes, her calm but commanding presence drawing attention wherever she went. His mind wandered, as it often did, to the stories he had heard about her bravery and sharp mind, and he wondered what it would be like to speak to her, not as a guest or an engineer, but as someone who could share thoughts and ideas honestly. Without realizing it, Eli began speaking aloud. "She's so clever, so graceful. I wish I could tell her how much I admire her." The words spilled out softly, almost a whisper. In his sleep-induced haze, he continued. "And she laughs. I hope she laughs at me, not at my stupidity. She's amazing, the best I've ever known." Eli muttered a few more sentences, his admiration unfiltered and completely genuine. His subconscious, free from the usual caution that governed his waking thoughts, spoke openly. He shifted on the bed, murmuring about her intelligence, her courage, and how he wished he could do something that would make her proud. In his dreamlike state, he imagined himself walking beside her, helping her with problems she might never notice, standing beside her when others doubted her decisions. Outside the room, a soft sound echoed down the corridor, a quiet, melodic laugh. Lyra had been making her usual evening rounds through the station, checking on maintenance and greeting those who worked late shifts. Her golden eyes were drawn to the guest quarters where humans were staying, and something made her stop near Eli's room. She had been curious about the human engineer assigned to her station. He was quiet, polite, and had an almost timid demeanor, yet he had repaired the freighter's engine faster than some of her own advisors had expected. She raised an eyebrow when she heard a soft, unfamiliar voice from inside the room. Her interest piqued. She moved closer and paused by the doorway. Eli's words, muffled but clear enough, reached her ears. She listened in silence. And then, quietly, she laughed. It was not a mocking laugh, but a warm, genuine sound that betrayed amusement and curiosity. She could hear how honest and unguarded the human was, how much he truly admired her, not out of fear or duty, but from pure respect and fascination. Eli stirred on the bed, shifting again, his words flowing like a quiet confession. She doesn't even know I exist, but I would do anything to help her, just to see her smile. Lyra's eyes softened. There was something about the sincerity in his voice, something so human that it drew her in. Unlike many aliens on the station, humans were unpredictable, full of emotion, and somehow brave in ways that did not rely on power or status. She could see now why this human, so small and unassuming, had been trusted with critical engineering tasks. Eventually, Eli's murmuring slowed, and he fell into deep sleep. Lyra remained by the door for a few more moments, allowing herself one last smile. Then, quietly, she moved on, leaving Eli to dream. The next morning, Eli awoke with a start. The memory of his sleep talk felt hazy, almost like a strange dream. He could not recall exactly what he had said, but he remembered feeling embarrassed. "I hope no one heard that," he muttered to himself, sitting up and rubbing his eyes. He had no idea that Princess Lyra had not only heard him, but had found his words amusing and endearing. Breakfast in the station's central atrium was bustling. Aliens of every shape and size moved gracefully between tables and platforms. Eli carried his tray of synthetic food carefully, trying not to bump into anyone. He kept his gaze low, nervous about meeting anyone in authority, especially royalty. And then he saw her. Lyra was seated at a table with advisors, discussing plans for station security. Her eyes, golden and bright, swept across the room. She glanced in his direction, and for a brief moment, Eli's heart skipped a beat. She smiled, just slightly, just enough that it felt like she was acknowledging him. Eli froze for a second, unsure whether to look away or approach. He chose the safe option, keeping his distance while trying to appear busy with his breakfast. Lyra, however, did not look away. Her curiosity about the human grew. She remembered the quiet words spoken the night before, words full of admiration and honesty. She wondered how such a small human could be so brave and sincere. Traits that seemed rare in the high-ranking beings who walked the station's halls. Throughout the morning, Eli found himself noticing small things he had never before. The way Lyra's golden eyes reflected the light, the way she moved with precise grace, and the quiet aura of authority that surrounded her. He felt a strange mix of awe and nervous excitement. Meanwhile, Lyra watched him from across the room, smiling to herself. She decided to learn more about this human, not just his skills, but his character. She had seen humans before, but they often acted cautiously, formal, or hesitant. Eli's honesty, even in sleep, hinted at something different. She was intrigued. By the afternoon, Eli was assigned to inspect another freighter docked to the station. He moved quickly and efficiently, unaware that Lyra had made a mental note to observe him closely over the coming days. She wanted to see whether his words in sleep were a true reflection of who he was. As Eli worked, he hummed softly, thinking about his tasks and the stars outside the station. His life, though far from Earth, was beginning to feel like it had purpose. Little did he know, the incident from last night had already changed how the princess, and perhaps the entire station, viewed him. And so, Eli's accidental confession, spoken in the quiet of his sleep, set the stage for a connection that neither human nor alien could have predicted. Something new was beginning, an unusual friendship, built on honesty, curiosity, and the subtle bravery that only humans seem to possess. And it had started with the simplest thing, talking about someone you admire while dreaming. After that night, Eli sensed a subtle change on the station, though he could not quite put his finger on it. Life continued with its usual routines, maintenance schedules, freighter inspections, and endless corridor walks between sections of the station. Yet, there was something different in the air. Whenever he passed certain areas, He occasionally noticed a soft glimmer of gold in the corner of his eye, a fleeting presence that vanished when he turned to look. He tried to dismiss it as imagination. Humans were small and often overlooked in alien stations, and he knew that royalty like Princess Lyra was often surrounded by advisors and guards, but a tiny part of him dared to wonder if it had been her, watching silently. Lyra, on her side, found herself intrigued by the human engineer. His honesty and sincerity had captivated her, even in sleep. Most beings she encountered on the station were polished, cautious, and careful to hide their true thoughts, but Eli's words had been raw, genuine, and fearless. It was a refreshing change. She wanted to know more about him, not just as an engineer, but as a human. The opportunity came sooner than she expected. The station had a small malfunction in one of its lower corridors. A group of maintenance drones had begun to act erratically, blocking passageways and causing minor confusion. Lyra knew that Eli was assigned to the engineering team nearby. Interesting, she thought, her golden eyes sparkling. Let's see how he handles this. She approached the corridor quietly, observing from a distance. Eli, unaware of her presence, was already on the scene, examining the drones. They moved in odd patterns, sometimes colliding or pausing mid-air. Many aliens had tried to deactivate them, but the drones' systems were complex, foreign to their technology. Eli crouched beside one, scanning its interface. Okay, let's see what we've got here, he muttered to himself, tapping a few controls and adjusting the energy flow. One by one, the drones responded to his commands, resuming their normal functions. Within minutes, the corridor was safe again, and the flow of the station returned to normal. Lyra could not help but smile. The way he worked was efficient, precise, and yet unpretentious. He did not boast or seek attention, he simply solved the problem. She stepped forward, making her presence known. "You handled that quite well," she said lightly, her tone teasing but warm. "I might have to start assigning you all my tasks." Eli looked up, startled, nearly dropping his tools. His heart skipped a beat when he saw the princess herself, standing there with that familiar golden gaze and the hint of a smile on her lips. "Princess Lyra," he stammered, bowing slightly out of respect. I was just doing my job." Lyra laughed softly, the same gentle sound he had heard the night before. "I know," she replied. "But not everyone would approach it as you did. Most would panic or call for help." Eli felt a warmth spread across his cheeks. He tried to focus on the drones again, pretending to check his instruments, but he could not stop sneaking glances at her. Lyra continued, stepping closer. "Tell me, do you always talk to machines this way? Or was it just the drones that deserved your attention?" Eli blinked, confused. I guess I just try to understand them. They respond better that way." Her golden eyes glimmered with amusement. "I see. Humans have interesting ways of solving problems. You are different from most beings on this station." Eli's mind raced. "Different? I'm just trying to do my work, princess." Lyra laughed again, a sound like wind through crystal towers. "And yet, you caught my attention. That is not easy to do." For the rest of the day, Eli found himself in a curious position. Whenever he worked in the corridors, he occasionally noticed a figure moving at a distance, observing him silently. Sometimes it was Lyra. Other times he wasn't certain. It was as if she wanted to see who he truly was, without the formality of titles or advisors. Later, in the station's observation deck, Eli took a rare moment to rest. The large glass walls revealed a field of stars, each one twinkling with colors he had never seen on Earth. He leaned against the railing, thinking about the strange turn his life had taken. He had never expected to catch the attention of royalty, let alone in such a personal way. Unbeknownst to him, Lyra was standing on a balcony above, quietly watching. She observed how he worked alone, how he treated the station's minor malfunctions with patience, and how he never seemed to look down on anyone, regardless of species. His humility and skill were remarkable. Curiosity began to grow in her mind. She decided to test him further, in small, playful ways. The next day, while Eli was working on another freighter's systems, Lyra, accidentally, bumped into him in a narrow corridor. "Oh, I'm sorry," she said with a hint of laughter, pretending to be clumsy. Eli jumped slightly, blinking in surprise. "Princess, you startled me," he said, trying to maintain his composure. Lyra tilted her head, her golden eyes glinting. "Did I? Or did I just make sure you noticed me?" Eli laughed nervously, scratching the back of his neck. I guess I noticed." This small interaction, though casual, thrilled Eli in a way he could not explain. He had admired her from afar for so long, and now she was speaking directly to him. She wasn't scolding or commanding. She was teasing, playful, and genuinely amused. Lyra smiled to herself, deciding that the human's reaction was worth observing further. She began placing little challenges in his path. A complicated panel that required delicate repair, a malfunctioning communication array, or even questions about alien technology she knew would test his understanding. Each time, Eli rose to the challenge with focus and calm, showing ingenuity and creativity. Meanwhile, Eli began to notice that she seemed to appear whenever he least expected it. At first he assumed it was coincidence, but as the days passed, it became clear that Princess Lyra was deliberately observing him. He felt a mix of nervousness and excitement. One evening, while Eli rested in his quarters, Lyra approached him in the station's hallway, her voice light. "I heard something the other night, from your sleep, I believe." Eli froze. "Sleep? I didn't—" Lyra laughed, cutting him off gently. "Relax, it was amusing. Honest, heartfelt, and very human." Eli's face turned bright red. I didn't mean... I mean..." Lyra's laughter was soft and warm. "You don't have to explain, I just found it endearing." That moment shattered the invisible barrier between human and alien royalty. No longer was she a distant, untouchable figure. She was someone who could see him, understand him, and even laugh with him. Eli felt a thrill he had never experienced before. The days that followed were filled with small, shared moments. Lyra asking for his advice on technical systems, playful challenges to see how he would react, and casual conversations in quiet corners of the station. Eli's admiration for her grew, but so did his understanding of her personality, her intelligence, her humor, and her genuine curiosity about the world beyond her royal duties. Lyra, for her part, found herself drawn to him more each day. His honesty, courage, and gentle demeanor were rare on the station. Humans, she realized, were underestimated, but Eli showed the value of a kind, intelligent mind in action. By the end of Part 2, Eli remained unaware that his sleep confession had sparked this playful curiosity and growing respect from the princess. Yet the connection had begun. Through small observations, casual interactions, and moments of laughter, a bridge had formed between human and royalty, a bridge built on trust, honesty, and the subtle magic of unspoken admiration. The station hummed softly with energy, a rhythm of lights and machinery that never stopped. Eli moved through the corridors, carrying a small toolkit and scanning the panels of a newly docked freighter. He had grown accustomed to the strange shapes, colors, and sounds of the alien vessels, yet he still felt a thrill every time he solved a particularly tricky problem. Humans were rare here, and every task he completed seemed to earn him a small measure of respect. But there was one measure of attention he never expected: Princess Lyra. Eli had learned to notice her subtle appearances: a shadow flitting past a doorway, a golden eye catching the light from across a room, or a quiet laugh drifting down a hallway. He never confronted her directly, unsure of what to say or how to behave. Aliens of her rank were often untouchable, a mixture of awe and caution surrounding them like a barrier. Then, one evening, that barrier broke entirely. Eli was finishing repairs on a freighter's engine core, carefully tightening panels and testing systems. The room was quiet except for the faint hum of the machinery and his own breathing. Suddenly, he heard a light voice behind him. "I hope you don't mind, but I've been watching your work." Eli spun around, nearly dropping his tools. There she was, Princess Lyra, standing in the doorway with that golden gaze he had come to admire. Her expression was playful, and for the first time she smiled directly at him. I, Eli stammered, unsure whether to bow or simply say hello. Lyra laughed softly, cutting through his nervousness like sunlight. "Relax, human. You do not need to bow. I am impressed with your work." Eli swallowed, his face warm. "Thank you, Princess. I'm just doing my job." "You do it well," she said, stepping closer. "And yet, I have to confess, I've been curious about you for some time now." Eli blinked, unsure what she meant. "Curious?" "Yes," she replied, her golden eyes sparkling. "I overheard something the other night, in your sleep." Eli froze. His mind raced. "Sleep? I didn't know anyone could hear that." Lyra's laugh was soft and musical. "I did, and I must admit, it was very entertaining." Eli's cheeks burned. I wasn't, I mean, "Shh," she said, holding a delicate hand up, her tone gentle. "Do not worry. It was honest. I liked it. Very human, very sincere." Eli felt a mixture of embarrassment and relief. The princess was not angry. She was amused. And more than that, she seemed genuinely interested. That means a lot, Princess," he said quietly, trying to regain some composure. "I didn't mean to. Lyra smiled, leaning casually against a nearby panel. "You do not need to explain. Your honesty is rare, Eli. Most beings are careful with their words. You are not." Her use of his name, spoken aloud, sent a strange thrill through him. Humans were rarely given such personal attention in alien circles, and here was a princess, speaking to him as an equal in curiosity and amusement. For a few moments, they simply stood there, the soft hum of machinery filling the silence. Eli tried to focus on the work in front of him, but his eyes kept drifting to Lyra. She seemed smaller than he imagined, despite her presence commanding the room. Her blue skin shimmered under the dim light, and her golden eyes held warmth that contrasted sharply with the formality he had expected from royalty. I admire you, Princess," he said suddenly, the words spilling out before he could stop them. "Not just for your position, but for everything you do. You're brave, clever, and everyone listens to you." Lyra's eyebrows lifted slightly, surprise flickering across her face. Then she laughed again, softly, almost like a melody. "Eli, you speak very plainly. It is refreshing." Her laughter broke something in him, something formal and cautious he had been carrying. He laughed too, awkwardly at first, then more freely. The sound of it echoed in the engine room, but neither of them cared. It was the first moment they had truly shared, beyond titles, duties, and formalities. "Do you often talk to royalty like this?" she asked, her tone teasing. "No," Eli admitted, scratching the back of his neck. "Usually, I just do my work and stay out of trouble." Lyra's smile widened. "Then perhaps I am lucky to be an exception." From that moment on, the dynamic between them began to change. Lyra started finding small ways to interact with him more openly. She asked him questions about his work, about Earth, and even about his thoughts on the station's systems. She observed how he approached problems, how he treated alien crew members, and how he remained calm under pressure. Eli, meanwhile, began to realize that her playful teasing was not mockery, but a way of testing him, seeing how human ingenuity and honesty worked in a world of highly trained aliens. He responded with sincerity, showing skill, patience, and a humility that impressed her more than any technical ability could. One afternoon, a minor incident occurred that further solidified their connection. A cargo container began leaking energy from its power core, causing small electrical surges that interfered with the station's systems. Panic began to ripple through the area as alien workers moved away cautiously. Eli, noticing the problem, stepped forward immediately. "Everyone back!" he called. He moved quickly, assessing the energy surge and tapping into the control panels. His hands flew over the tools with practiced precision, adjusting the energy flow to stabilize the container. Lyra watched, impressed not only with his technical skill, but also with his calm leadership. Unlike many others who hesitated or panicked, Eli remained focused, solving the problem efficiently. Within moments, the container was stable, and the small crisis was averted. "Very good," Lyra said quietly, as she approached him after the incident. "You remain calm when others panic. That is admirable." Eli, wiping sweat from his brow, nodded. "I just do what I can. I'm not a hero, just trying to keep things safe." Lyra shook her head, a small smile on her lips. "Sometimes that is enough. Bravery is not always about fighting battles. Sometimes it is about keeping calm and doing the right thing when others cannot." In that moment, Eli felt a new respect for her as well. The princess was not merely a figurehead. She understood responsibility, courage, and intelligence. She valued sincerity over pretense, and she noticed qualities in others that many overlooked. That evening, as the station lights dimmed for the artificial night cycle, Lyra found herself walking beside Eli in one of the observation decks. Stars stretched endlessly outside, their colors shimmering in the glass walls. For a moment they walked in silence, simply enjoying the vastness of space. "You know," Lyra said softly, "I have not laughed like that in a long time. Your honesty. It surprised me." Eli glanced at her, unsure what to say. I didn't mean to. She shook her head gently, smiling. "You did not need to mean anything. You were human, and humans are fascinating." Eli's heart raced. No one had ever spoken to him this way. He felt seen, appreciated, and strangely safe in the presence of a being so powerful and elegant. They continued walking, their conversation flowing more easily now. Lyra asked questions about Earth, about Eli's experiences as a human among aliens, and even about his thoughts on space itself. Eli, in turn, shared stories of his home planet, of simple joys and the small innovations humans often overlooked. By the end of the evening, a bridge had formed between them, a bond of laughter, trust, and mutual curiosity. Eli had begun to see Lyra not just as a princess, but as someone remarkable, whose attention and warmth were rare gifts. Lyra, for her part, had discovered in him a kind of courage and honesty that made her laugh, think, and wonder. And so what began as an accidental confession in sleep had grown into something far more meaningful. The ice had been broken, barriers had fallen, and both human and princess found themselves drawn together by honesty, curiosity, and the subtle thrill of shared laughter. Eli returned to his quarters that night, exhausted but exhilarated. He did not yet know what the future held or how this connection with Lyra might change his life. But he did know one thing. For the first time, he felt seen, appreciated, and, in a small but important way, valued. Outside his window the stars stretched endlessly. Somewhere among them, Princess Lyra walked the corridors of the station, her golden eyes thinking of a human who had spoken truth in his sleep and had laughed just a little with her. And for both of them, that laughter was only the beginning. The quiet hum of the space station was suddenly pierced by alarms. Red lights flashed along the corridors, and a low, urgent tone echoed through the walls. Eli's communicator beeped insistently. He hurried to the nearest console, his heart racing. "Engineering report," the voice of the station supervisor demanded. Eli scanned the monitors. The central power grid had begun to fail. Systems across the station flickered and dropped offline. Life support in minor sectors, docking controls, and communications all showing warning signs. Panic rippled among the alien staff. Many froze, unsure how to act under the pressure. Lyra, alerted immediately, appeared at the control hub. Her golden eyes glimmered with focus and concern. She had been walking near the observation deck when the alarm sounded. "Eli," she called, her voice calm but urgent. "I need you with me at the main control console, quickly." Eli nodded and ran, carrying his toolkit. His mind worked fast, already analyzing potential causes. In all his training, he had never faced a failure of this magnitude, not in practice simulations or routine repairs. Yet he did not hesitate. When he arrived, Lyra was already coordinating the response. Alien engineers crowded the console area, but many looked to her for direction. Eli noticed their unease. They were skilled, but the crisis was beyond routine protocols. "Listen," Lyra said to everyone, her tone commanding yet steady. "We need solutions, not panic. Eli, can you help stabilize the grid?" Eli swallowed, realizing the gravity of the situation. He nodded. "Yes, Princess. I'll need access to the primary conduits and a few auxiliary panels." Lyra waved her hand, granting immediate access. "Do what you must. I trust you." Eli moved swiftly, his fingers working on the alien systems with precision. He had studied these types of power networks during his training, though this station's technology was far more advanced than anything on Earth. He adjusted energy flows, rerouted power through auxiliary lines, and recalibrated stabilization modules. A surge shot across one of the panels, and a nearby alien engineer jumped back. Eli remained steady. "I've got it," he muttered, continuing his work. Just a few more adjustments. Lyra watched closely, impressed by his calm under pressure. She had seen brilliant engineers panic in similar situations, but Eli handled it with a combination of focus, ingenuity, and courage. "Keep the energy balanced," she said, issuing clear commands to the staff. "Follow his lead." Minutes stretched, the tension thick. Red lights continued to flash, alarms blaring, and the station shuddered slightly as power spikes surged. Eli moved from panel to panel, manually recalibrating the grid while Lyra monitored overall stability. "You're doing well," she said quietly, stepping closer. "But one misstep could overload the main core." Eli glanced at her, grateful for her calm presence. "I know. That's why I need precise control over these conduits. One wrong adjustment, and it could cascade." Lyra nodded. "I'll coordinate the auxiliary systems. You focus on the main lines." Working together, they became a synchronized team. Eli's human ingenuity complemented Lyra's strategic mind. He devised solutions the alien engineers had not considered, rerouting energy in unconventional ways, using backup circuits creatively, and stabilizing unstable modules with careful timing. The station's inhabitants began to notice. Many had doubted humans' capabilities in complex engineering, assuming their technology was inferior. Now, they watched as a single human worked alongside the princess to save the station from disaster. Whispers spread. The human is clever. He can think under pressure. Finally, after what felt like hours, Eli made the last adjustment. A hum of stability replaced the chaotic alarms. Systems began to stabilize. Lights returned to their normal glow, and the station's hum shifted back to its usual rhythm. Lyra exhaled softly, allowing herself a small smile. "It's done," she said. You've saved us, Eli. Eli stepped back, exhausted but relieved. We did it together, he said, nodding toward her. I couldn't have done it alone. You handled what many could not, she replied, her tone sincere. Your calm, your skill, it is admirable. For the first time, Eli felt fully recognized, not just as a human, but as someone capable of making a real difference in an alien world. The relief among the station staff was palpable, and murmurs of admiration for the human engineer grew louder. Lyra placed a hand lightly on his shoulder. You see, she said softly, humans are remarkable. You have courage, intelligence, and an honesty that shines in times of pressure. Eli felt a surge of pride. He had always known humans were capable of ingenuity and bravery, but hearing it from a princess he respected, someone who had witnessed thousands of beings in her life, was extraordinary. Later, the station held a small assembly in the central atrium to acknowledge those who had worked to stabilize the grid. Lyra stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. I would like to recognize one individual, she said, her golden eyes locking on Eli. This human, though small and new to our ways, showed courage, intelligence, and calm in the face of a crisis. He reminded us that bravery is not measured by size or rank, but by action and heart. The crowd murmured, some clapping in admiration. Eli, stunned, stepped forward. He could hardly believe that the princess had singled him out in front of the station's inhabitants. Lyra continued, smiling warmly. Humans are often underestimated, but they are capable of remarkable deeds. Let this human's actions today serve as an example to all. We learn much from those we least expect. Eli bowed, deeply humbled. Thank you, Princess. I just did what I thought was right. Lyra's eyes softened. That is all I ask of anyone. And yet, the right actions often make the greatest difference. After the assembly, Lyra led Eli to a quieter corridor, away from the bustling crowd. You surprised me, she said, her tone lighter now, tinged with amusement. I thought humans were fragile and cautious, yet you remain calm when others panic. That is admirable. Eli laughed nervously. I guess I've learned to think fast under pressure. On Earth, we often face problems without guidance. You have to improvise. Lyra nodded. Improvise. Yes, that is something I admire. Humans adapt quickly, and you have proven it today. For the first time, Eli felt fully accepted, not just as a worker or guest, but as someone who could contribute meaningfully to the alien world around him. And he realized that his connection with Lyra was no longer based solely on admiration from afar. It was mutual respect and understanding, forged in the heat of a real challenge. That night, Eli returned to his quarters, exhausted but exhilarated. He could still hear the echo of the station's alarms in his mind, but it was mixed with the memory of Lyra's golden eyes and her words of praise. He realized something profound. Humans were capable of great deeds, even among species far more advanced and seemingly superior. And perhaps this was only the beginning. Outside the window, the stars stretched endlessly, a canvas of light and possibility. Somewhere along the corridors of the station, Lyra moved quietly, thinking of the human who had faced the chaos with courage and intelligence. She had seen many beings in her life, but few had impressed her as much as Eli. And for both of them, the day's events had changed everything. Trust had been earned, respect had been given, and a bond, rooted in courage, honesty, and mutual admiration, had begun to grow between human and princess. The galaxy was wide, the challenges many, and yet Eli felt ready. Not because he was the strongest, the fastest, or the most skilled, but because he was human, adaptable, brave, and willing to act when others hesitated. And Lyra, the princess who had first laughed at his sleep-talking, had now seen the truth of humanity in action. The adventure was far from over. The space station was calm now, the echoes of the previous day's crisis fading into the background hum of machinery. Life had returned to normal, yet for Eli, nothing felt quite the same. The events of the past days, the sleep confession, Lyra's playful curiosity, and the power grid crisis had left a mark on him. He walked through the corridors with a new sense of purpose. Humans were rare here, often underestimated, yet he now knew that even one person could make a difference. Lyra, meanwhile, was observing the station with a keen eye. Her golden gaze lingered on Eli as he moved from one panel to another, checking minor repairs. There was an ease in his manner now, a quiet confidence that had grown from experience and trust. She had seen him in action, had seen the calm determination of a human in crisis, and it had left a deep impression. The princess decided it was time for something different, a moment away from duties, away from panels and alarms. She found Eli in a quiet observation deck, gazing at a nearby nebula that stretched like a cloud of colors beyond the station's glass walls. "You always seem to find the quiet spots," she said, stepping closer. Her voice carried that gentle teasing tone he had come to recognize. Eli turned, startled but smiling. I guess I like looking at the stars. They remind me of home." Lyra nodded. "I understand. They are beautiful, but also endless. It can make one feel small." "I like feeling small sometimes," Eli said, shrugging. "It makes the problem seem manageable. Not everything feels so big." Lyra smiled, her golden eyes reflecting the colors of the nebula. "You think like a human. You find perspective even in vastness. It is rare." For a few moments they simply stood there, sharing silence and the view. Then Lyra leaned slightly toward him, her voice dropping to a softer tone. "Do you remember what you said in your sleep?" Eli froze. I was just dreaming. I didn't mean anything." Lyra laughed softly, interrupting him. "I know, and that is why it was so genuine. Your honesty surprised me. It made me laugh, yes, but it also made me curious about you. It was the beginning of something I did not expect." Eli felt his face warm. I didn't think anyone would ever hear it, especially not you." "You spoke freely," she said, stepping a little closer. "And humans are rare in their courage to speak honestly, even in dreams. That honesty is valuable." Eli felt a surge of emotion. He had always admired humans' ability to adapt, to face the unknown, and to act with courage. Yet hearing this from Lyra, someone who had seen countless beings and events across the galaxy, was different. It was recognition, not just admiration. "You know," Lyra continued, a playful glint in her golden eyes, "I've been thinking, humans might be underestimated, but perhaps they are more capable than most realize. You've shown that." Eli chuckled nervously. I just do what I can. I guess humans improvise." "Improvise," Lyra repeated, smiling. "Yes, and that is why you succeeded when others struggled. You did not rely solely on rules or protocols. You acted with thought, courage, and heart." The words struck Eli deeply. Heart. That was something he had always tried to carry in everything he did, yet he had never expected it to be acknowledged by someone like Princess Lyra. Over the next few days, their friendship deepened. Lyra began seeking his advice more openly, asking questions not only about engineering, but also about human culture and thought processes. Eli shared stories of Earth, simple human traditions, and the ingenuity that humans often displayed in ordinary life. Lyra listened, fascinated, and occasionally laughed at the peculiar ideas humans had developed to survive, adapt, and thrive. One evening, they found themselves on the observation deck again, watching a distant comet streak across the sky. "You're different from the others," Lyra said softly. Most beings here act carefully, hiding thoughts and emotions. You show them without fear. Eli smiled, shrugging slightly. I've learned that honesty and action matter more than appearances. If you wait for permission or approval, things might never get done. Lyra nodded. That is wise and rare. It is why I respect you, Eli. Not just for skill, but for who you are. Eli felt a warmth in his chest. Thank you, Princess. That means a lot to me. There was a comfortable pause, then Lyra laughed softly, her tone teasing. And you still talk about me in your sleep, I presume? Eli laughed, embarrassed but amused. I hope not. I don't remember most of it. Lyra's laughter rang like music through the observation deck. It doesn't matter. Honesty like that is memorable, and it shows something valuable about humans. You do not hide who you are, even unconsciously. The two of them laughed together, a shared moment that broke all the formalities and titles that often separated beings across species. In that laughter, a bond formed stronger than duty or expectation, trust, respect, and a genuine connection. Later, during a small ceremony organized to acknowledge the station's engineers and staff, Lyra publicly praised Eli. This human, she said, her golden eyes shining, has shown that courage, ingenuity, and honesty are qualities that can save lives, even in times of crisis. Let his actions remind us that greatness is not measured by size, rank, or species, but by the heart and mind of the individual. Eli felt the eyes of the station upon him. Whispers of admiration and surprise moved through the crowd. Many aliens had underestimated humans, assuming their small size and lack of advanced training made them less capable. Now they saw otherwise. After the ceremony, Lyra walked beside him quietly. You see, she said softly, your kind can achieve much, Eli. Today proved it. And it is why I value your presence here, not as a human among aliens, but as someone remarkable. Eli nodded, humbled. I never expected this. I just wanted to do my work well. That is enough, Lyra said, smiling. And sometimes, enough is extraordinary. Days passed, and the bond between them continued to grow. They shared quiet conversations in observation decks, walked through the station's gardens, and discussed ideas that bridged human and alien understanding. Eli realized that admiration and respect could build bridges stronger than any protocol or tradition. Lyra realized that humans had qualities that many species overlooked: honesty, adaptability, and courage. One evening, as they watched a distant supernova glowing in the void, Lyra turned to Eli with a smile. Do you know why I laughed when I first heard you in your sleep? Eli shook his head. I don't. Because, she said softly, it was genuine. You spoke from your heart without fear, without pretension. And humans who speak truth like that, are rare. That night, you were entirely yourself. And that is remarkable. Eli felt a mixture of pride, awe, and warmth. Thank you, Princess. I'll remember that. Lyra's golden eyes gleamed. I hope you do. And I hope you continue to show the galaxy what humans are capable of. Today, you proved it. Tomorrow, who knows what else you will achieve. For Eli, the moment was unforgettable. He had started as a quiet human engineer, perhaps unnoticed by the station's elite. Yet through honesty, courage, and skill, he had earned not only recognition, but respect, and the admiration of a being as extraordinary as Princess Lyra. The galaxy was vast, challenges endless, an adventure waiting beyond every star. And while humans might seem small among the stars, Eli now knew that being human, honest, brave, and willing to act, was enough to make a difference, even in worlds far beyond his own. Lyra laughed softly again, teasing him one last time. And perhaps, You will still talk about me in your sleep. But now, I will listen with a smile, not surprise. Eli chuckled, shaking his head. I'll try not to, but I can't promise. Together they watched the stars, two beings from different worlds, sharing laughter, respect, and a bond that would only grow stronger. And in that moment, Eli realized something he had always hoped for. Humans were extraordinary, not just in strength or intellect, but in heart. And sometimes, that was enough to win the admiration of an alien princess and the respect of an entire galaxy.